Good evening, good evening. I am Mr. Justin, and this is the Dominance Academy. And tonight we're going to talk about programming her erotic mind. Programming her erotic mind. Oh, you know what? I'm going to make an adjustment here. Excuse me. I forgot that I can monitor my mic through my mic here. All right, there we go. All right, so yeah, we're going to be talking about programming her erotic mind. Programming her erotic mind. So I think you guys have heard of the term operant conditioning, right? I'm sure that's been a thing that you're well aware of. And so we're going to be going into that if you're not aware of the operant conditioning. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure this out. I don't know how I did it before. Not sure how I did it before, but I had my music coming through the audio here. Just 1 second. Let me check this out. Sorry, folks. Okay. So for some reason, my music is not coming through the microphone as the default sound. So I guess I'll just have to change it back. Oh well. I'll figure that shit out another time. While we get to talk about women's erotic minds and turning them on and all that good shit. All right, so first we're just going to review a little bit about operant conditioning. Okay, so if you don't know about operant conditioning, I will read a bit about that. So basically, we engage in behaviors that we know will lead to good and bad outcomes. And we also tend to avoid behaviors that we know will have negative consequences. So it makes sense that being rewarded for something makes you want to do it more often, and being punished makes you want to do it less. And this type of learning is what the behavioral psychologist B.F. Skinner dubbed as operant conditioning. So, and it can have a powerful effect on your everyday behavior. So for example, when lab rats press a lever and a green light is on, they receive a food pellet as a reward. They press the lever when a red light is on, and they receive a mild shock. As a result, they learn to press the lever when the light is green and avoid the light that's red. However, operant conditioning is not just something that takes place in the experimental settings while training lab animals. It also plays a powerful role in everyday learning. Reinforcement and punishment take place in natural settings all the time, as well as more structured settings such as classrooms or therapy sessions. And so there's like a bunch of guys who had influence on this, like B.F. Skinner, John B. Watson, Thorndike. Thorndike was pretty influential, and his theory was heavily influenced by the work of psychologist Edward Thorndike, and who proposed what he calls the law of effect. According to this principle, actions that are followed by desirable outcomes are more likely to be repeated, while those followed by undesirable outcomes are less likely to be repeated. Operant conditioning relies on a fairly simple premise. Actions that are followed by reinforcement will be strengthened and more likely to occur again in the future. If you tell a funny story in class and everybody laughs, you'll probably be more likely to tell that story again in the future, right? We all have operant conditioning in our daily lives. It's around us all the time, okay? So how it works. If you raise your hand to ask a question and your teacher praises your polite behavior, you will be more likely to raise your hands the next time you have a question or comment. Because the behavior was followed by reinforcement or desirable outcome, the preceding action is strengthened. Conversely, actions that result in punishment or undesirable consequences will be weakened and less likely to occur again in the future. If you tell the same story again in another class, but nobody laughs this time, you'll be less likely to repeat the story again in the future. If you shout out an answer in class and your teacher scolds you, then you might be less likely to interrupt the class again. Skinner distinguished between two different types of behaviors. Respondent behaviors are those that occur automatically and reflexively, such as pulling your hand back from a hot stove or jerking your leg when the doctor taps on your knee with a hammer. You don't have to learn these behaviors, they simply occur automatically and involuntarily. Operant behaviors, on the other hand, are those under our conscious control. Some may occur spontaneously and others purposely, but it's the consequences of these actions that then influence whether or not they occur again in the future. Our actions on the environment and the consequences of that action make up an important part of the learning process. So while classical conditioning could account for the respondent behaviors, Skinner realized that it could not account for a great deal of learning. Instead, Skinner suggested that operant conditioning held far greater importance. He invented different devices during his boyhood, and he put these skills to work during his studies in operant conditioning. He created a device known as an operant conditioning chamber, often referred to today as a Skinner box. The chamber could hold a small animal, such as a rat or a pigeon. The box also contained a bar or a key that the animal could press in order to receive a reward. In order to track responses, Skinner also developed a device known as a cumulative recorder. The device recorded response as an upward movement of a line so that response rates could be read by looking at the slope of the line. So in operant conditioning, there's the two reinforcements, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. So, it's just basically creating favorable outcomes and then creating unfavorable outcomes. I won't bring that about because it's just pretty obvious. So there's punishment as well. And there's two types. There's positive and there's negative punishment. Okay, so positive punishment, sometimes called punishment by application, presents an unfavorable event or outcome to weaken the response it elicits. It sounds like an oxymoron, but in this instance, positive doesn't mean good. Instead, it suggests that something is added to the situation to act as a punisher. Spanking for misbehavior is an example of punishment by application. So for positive punishment, you could say punishment by application, right? Because positive means like you're adding to it, all right? So spanking for misbehavior is an example of punishment by application. Negative punishment, also known as punishment by removal, right, occurs when a favorable event or outcome is removed after behavior occurs. Taking away a child's video game following misbehavior is an example of negative punishment, okay? So it's adding or reducing, okay? So this goes on for, many different types of ways you can utilize this. There's continuous reinforcement, there's partial reinforcement, there's like fixed ratios, fixed schedules, and things of that nature. There's also intermittent reinforcement, and that's most easily seen in slot machines. Okay, so in slot machines, you're going to see this a lot. So you got basically three outcomes. Okay, you've got the win, you've got the almost win, and you've got a loss. Okay, and the outcomes of these are in a completely random pattern. Okay, and the reason being is that if you came close all the time, you'd give up. If you lost all the time, you would give up. And if you won all the time, eventually you would give up. Okay, you probably just take all your money, hire somebody to just sit there and pull the lever for you and go off and do something more challenging, right? So the thing is that when you have intermittent reinforcement where it's unknown when you're going to win, you stay there longer, right? Because this psychologically, it just triggers you. So when you're doing reinforcement, it's important to, like, after it's been fixed or after it's whatever the behavior is that you're trying to instill becomes ground in, okay? It's been massaged into the psyche. You then reinforce it by not reinforcing it. Okay. In the same way that getting a loss at the slot machine actually makes you want to get the win again. Okay. So like a, really simple example is like, let's say, all right. So a client of mine, he wanted his wife to serve him dinner and then take his plate away when he's finished. And so he started with some positive reinforcement, by positive in the sense of he's adding. Okay. So he would do verbal recognition, look her in the eye, smile, tell her what a good girl she is. And now here's the positive. Well, that's partial positive. And then another positive is bringing her in close. He would sit her on the lap and tell her this. Then when she got up, he would give her a little smack on the butt. Nothing painful, just, like a love tap on the butt as she walked away with his plate. So that's an example of the positive reinforcement and having it on a regular schedule. This has become an ingrained behavior of hers. Okay. And so in order to prevent it from becoming normalized and ignored, I told him to disrupt this. Like every once in a while, randomly, just don't do that. And then it'll set off like a trigger, like her subconscious will be like, hey, wait a second, there's something going on. And then maybe her conscious mind will realize like, wait a second, he didn't say anything. And then that takes her out of the loop, right? Wondering like, why didn't he say, did I do it wrong? And then she's like, look at everything, like, no, everything's perfect. I did everything right. What's going on here, right? And someone listening to this might say, well, that sounds really manipulative. And it is, but it's to bring freshness back into it, because then once he brought the same sort of verbal and physical reward back in, it was that much more impactful. Just like when you're sick of losing at the slots and then bam, you get that win, you get this huge shot of dopamine and you're like, yes, I'm a winner again. Same sort of thing happens. Okay. So here's like examples of operant conditioning. All right. After performing in a community theater play, you receive applause from an audience. This acts as a positive reinforcer, inspiring you to try out for more performance roles, right? Positive meaning the applause is the addition to the reinforcement. Another one is you train your dog to fetch by offering him praise, then pat on the head whenever he performs the behavior correctly. This is another positive reinforcer. A professor tells students that if they have perfect attendance all semester, they then do not have to take the final comprehensive exam. By removing an unpleasant stimulus, the final test, students are negatively reinforced to attend class regularly. If you fail to hand in a project on time, your boss becomes angry and berates your performance in front of your coworkers. This acts as a positive punisher, making it less likely that you will finish projects late in the future. And another one is a teen girl does not clean up her room as she was asked, so her parents take away her phone for the rest of the day. This is an example of negative punishment, which is in which a positive stimulus, like one that they care about, is taken away. All right. So just know that you have operant conditioning all the time in your life. Okay. Everywhere. All of us do. All right. So how does this play a role in programming her erotic mind? All right. Good question. I'm glad you asked. And guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Thank you guys for coming through on this late stream. I appreciate you for chilling with me. So programming her erotic mind is basically using the same principles. Okay. It does take a bit of creativity on your part. I got this stuff. It's like water flavoring stuff. It's pretty cool. You just like do a few shots of it, and it actually adds like hydration to it. So you're basically like making your own Gatorade with less sugar. Pretty good stuff. Anyways, so how does this play a role in programming her erotic mind? Well, this is it's the same principles, okay? And so it first starts with like, well, what do you want to achieve? All right, that's really the start of it, okay? What sort of erotic response do you want to have her have, right? So there's a number of different ways you can go about this. So the basic premise is that you're trying to link a behavior with like a physiological response. All right. So this goes along the lines of like Pavlov's dog, when he would hear the bell, and the treat would come out, right? And then the dog would start drooling, right? Or yeah, you get the treat, and then after a while he'd just hear the bell, and then he would start drooling. So this is the basic formula that you want to put into practice here. So you're basically linking unrelated things. Okay, so it makes sense that the drooling is related with the food, yes, but drooling isn't necessarily related with a light coming on. All right, so what you're doing is then replacing the stimulus of food with the bell or a light or whatever, just like with the rats. Okay, so after a while the rats, like, they would just see the light and they would start getting hungry, right? Thinking, oh boy, here comes the treat. Okay. So you're taking unrelated things and creating a response out of them. So the goal is you want her to associate an action or a body part with her arousal, such that she will be aroused by that action or body part outside the context of sex. So I'm just reading from some of my notes here. I'll just put my phone on my laptop. So let's just say an example is like finger sucking. Okay. When having sex with her, like from the front, okay, like missionary or something along those lines, or maybe on your side or something along those lines, you put two fingers, right, in her mouth and command her to suck on your fingers. All right. And then do this during a few sessions and add affirmations. Okay. And the affirmations that you're saying are things where she's just saying yes. All right. Because you don't want her thinking so much. Right. So you could just say, you love sucking on my fingers. Sucking on my fingers turns you on so much, doesn't it? Right. And she's already aroused, right, at that point. So it's like, you wouldn't start off with this. It would be something that you would add in during the ramping period of the arousal scale, so like there's like warm up, there's the ramp up, there's the climax, and then there's the release, and then the cool down, right? That's basically like how general arousal works. So during, after the warm up and you're in the ramping stage, that's when, when you're like fucking and things are passionate and, all that shit. So, and then you want to do this repeatedly, right? Because when the rats were in the cage and the light and the food, they didn't just do it once, right? It's something that you have to do multiple times, okay? Multiple times that you have to do this. And you move into, other things like during these sessions, like instead of telling her she loves it, like tell her she looks really sexy, right? Oh, baby, you look so sexy sucking on my fingers like that. Right. And just telling her how she looks, how she feels, and so on. And all right. So you go in with the affirmations, and then you make her, like, after a few times of doing this, you make her repeat it. Okay. Just really simple stuff like, tell me you love sucking on my fingers. And she'll say, I love sucking on your fingers. Tell me it turns you on so much. Right. And at the same time, it's like you could have like one hand on her clit, one hand in her mouth, whatever is going on. Right. You could be like behind her, say like spooning her. That would be a great position to be in. And you've got one hand wrapped around her face, and you've got your mouth in her ear. Typically you want it in her left ear. I don't know why, but like everywhere I hear, that's where you want to be putting these suggestions. And then your other hand is between her legs. Okay. So there's a lot of stimulation going on, and she's in this heightened state of arousal. And so this is when you start saying these things. Okay. That dog starts barking. I'm gonna have to bring his ass inside. Oh, this fucking asshole. Pardon me. Man, I gotta remember to. I gotta remember to fucking put that guy back inside. All right. So where was I? Right. Hand in the mouth, between the legs, right? Doing these things. And so she's associating these words, these phrases with arousal. Okay. And the finger sucking. So the finger sucking is really the thing what you're trying to do, trying to link and associate the pleasure with your fingers in her mouth, specifically your fingers, right? This is why you want her to be repeating these things and saying your fingers, my daddy's fingers, sir's fingers, whatever, sort of things you want to use, right? And then slowly morph this into her saying, sucking your fingers, makes me so wet for you. Sucking your fingers makes me need your dick. I love how your fingers taste and feel in my mouth. And it makes me so wet, right? Things along those lines where she's describing what's happening to her and you just telling her, and then she starts saying it on her own volition. Okay. And make her repeat this mantra while fucking her really good. Okay. It's helpful to have good eye contact. All right. And if you're not in the position to have eye contact, it's good to have your mouth right by her ear. All right. And don't settle for inaudible sort of garbles coming out of her mouth. Okay. So you might have to just turn up the forcefulness of your delivery just a little bit, so that it becomes more of a command, right? Which can further increase her arousal. All right. So how does this look like further down the line as far as like anchors and conditioning goes later? Okay. And this is where the fun stuff is, right? So the conditioning works like it depends on the person. Okay. Like how suggestive are they? How much does she really like you? There's a lot of factors involved. So some might need more time and some might need less. So there's no real like solid math about it. So later on, when not in a sexual context, okay, say in the kitchen while you're making sauce for pasta, all right, you call her over to taste the sauce for you, right? And you scoop a bit of the sauce on your fingers, the very same fingers that you use in her mouth. So if it's like, say, your left hand, use your left hand. If it's like the two middle fingers, okay, here and here, use those two. If it's these two, use these two, okay? And use the same fingers used during the conditioning and again say, tell me how it is, right? While making strong eye contact with her. And if the conditioning took hold, you'll have your girl getting aroused by eating a dollop of sauce from your fingers, okay? This can go into other casual things. Anything that involves your hand in her mouth. So like having her taste a bit of food from your dinner plate, like with fingers and no fork. So like, let's say you're eating dinner and she wants to try some of your food. Take it with your fingers and let her taste it off of your fingers, right? Instead of a fork. All right. Actually, just don't do that if you're having soup. Having her taste a bit of food from your dinner plate with fingers, no fork, actually, or pretending to wipe something from her mouth, right? Fixing a real or imagined bit of smudged lipstick, or simply calling her over while dragging your fingers on her cheek and near her face and say, oh, I just wanted to tell you how sexy you look right now, right? So anything like bringing your fingers to her mouth or close to her mouth, with strong eye contact, with a more just a slight seductive tone. All right, you don't want to like pour it on, but a slight seductive tone in these non-sexual contexts, it will trigger that small section in her mind that remembers what was happening these other times when your fingers were near or in her mouth. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay. And you can use these sort of things anywhere. Okay. And you can take it very far. You can take it very, very far. You can take it to the point of having, orgasms on command and this is a much longer drawn out process, the orgasms on command. But it can take many weeks of like continuous training where you do like the countdown method and things of that nature. I won't go into describe the entire process, but if you want to know about the process for orgasm control in the sense where you say a word and she has like a mini orgasm, it's not going to be like the earth-shattering orgasms that she has when you say go down on her or using toys on her. It's not going to be like that, but it's going to be a noticeable orgasm. Um, but if you want to know more details about this, about the countdown method, just shoot me a DM on Instagram, and we can get down with that. It's just a little too complicated and involved to just bring up here on the stream. But it's really important that you use they use commands, right? And using commands, I can't tell you how important it is, both just in your relationship and in the bedroom. Okay. And so if you are just kind of you want to bring this sort of dominance into your relationship, but you're not really sure how to go about it, you start in the bedroom. That's like the easiest place. Okay. Especially if your woman is not sexually aggressive. Okay. So if your woman's not sexually aggressive and you're pretty much the one who is doing the instigation, the one who is always initiating, the one who is doing most of the action, right? You're the top, basically. If you're a top and she's a bottom, then you can bring commands very, very easy into the bedroom. And so it's going to be a little bit more challenging if she is more dominant than you are in the bedroom, right? So like sexually aggressive woman, where she's like riding a lot. All right. My girl feels, I think it's so sexy to look at a woman while she's riding you. But my girl is just not comfortable at all from being on top. Like she just feels disconnected. She doesn't feel, I don't know, I guess she just doesn't feel very feminine. But to each their own. Some women do feel very feminine. They feel very powerful. They feel very sexual, being this sexual aggressor. And that's fine. Okay. I'm just saying that if your woman is like this, that there's possibility of having a struggle for power in the bedroom. And that actually might turn into something really fun. Okay. Like don't get in your feelings about it. It might be something fun, right? So don't put your tail between your legs. Just experiment with it. And if it goes left, just talk afterwards, right? And she might be like, oh shit, I didn't know that's what you're trying to do. And then you just talk about it and she's like, oh yeah, that would be really hot. Like, and then you can kind of create like a mini scene. But anyways, so if your woman is not like that, then it's going to be very easy to use commands in the bedroom. And it's really easy. Like I had a video about like the 3 basic ones, right? 3 basic commands of take off your clothes, bend over, and get on your knees, right? Those are 3 really, really easy commands to bring into the bedroom. And they shouldn't be too challenging. Okay. Now, if they are challenging, this is an indication that you've got something inside you that you need to work on. Okay. Like anytime you find some kind of resistance inside you, like you feel like a tightness or some anxiety or worry or something along those lines, that's just your body telling you that there's something there that you need to explore, that you need to investigate and uncover and really understand. Okay. So that you can get past it. All right. Because I don't know. Gosh, I'm just trying to think if I've been with a woman who did not like commands in the bedroom. I don't think so. I don't think I've come across a woman who did not absolutely like commands in the bedroom. But that's not to say they don't exist. I'm just trying to think of like if I had a story or something like that I could add where it was I was in one of those challenging positions. But whatever. I mean, I think just the way you are attracts certain women that will fit that will fit the other half, right? Like, just that's just the way it works. That's nature, right? So you should just start with commands, and you can. So I said, like, bend over, take off your clothes, get on your knees, and also positions. So if you want to say change positions, don't just like grab her and do it, right? Like, sure, that's good in one way if you're very passionate or whatever, but it's also really good if you tell her, right? So let's say you're a missionary, and instead of just getting up and, why is it that whenever I'm on a call with a client or I'm on a stream, Brooklyn just blows up and like every fire truck in the neighborhood just needs to drive by? It's like this all the time. I have no calls. Or there's a breaking calls. I'm not streaming. It's super quiet. I don't get that shit. Anyways, so instead of just putting her in position, grabbing her and doing this, whatever, tell her, say, get on your hands and knees. Okay. Lean your head off the bed. Get off the bed and get on your knees. Lie on your side. Right. Fold your legs, like cross-legged. Right. Grab behind your knees. Whatever it is that you want. Okay. Tell her to close her eyes, open her mouth, open her eyes, look at my eyes, and tell her things to say, right? And the simple things like say, here's another one. God damn. That's 2 fire trucks. Okay. So you could start with a question, right? Just simple thing like, let's she's really turned on and she really wants you to fuck her, right? You just ask her, you want me to fuck you? And then she's like, yeah. Tell me, right? And she's like, I want you to fuck me. And then you switch it. Say, no, don't tell me. Ask me. I say, will you fuck me? Right? And then you can be like, not good enough. Tell her not good enough. And then have her try again. And then you can tell her, you know what? That wasn't good enough either. I want to hear you beg. Yep, there's another one. God damn. That's like 3 in a row, I think. So then you'd be like, not good enough. Her asking is not good enough. And then you say, you know what? No, I want to hear you beg. Right? And then all the while you could like just keep your hand stimulating her. Okay. You could work this in with any other conditioning. Like say you doing like the hand thing, like kind of like playing with her lips and stuff like that. After you've done the conditioning with your fingers around her mouth. Right. So now you're compounding these things. Okay. And when you do the thing where you say like you want me to fuck you? Yes. And then say it, right? I want you to fuck me. No. Ask me, will you fuck me? Then you switch it and say, not good enough. And not good enough. I want to hear you beg. Nope, that was terrible. I'm not convinced. I want to hear you beg. Get up off the bed and get on your knees, right? So what you're doing is then you're driving it lower and lower and lower. You're driving down, almost in the same way where you're playing the slot machines and you just get a loss. You get a loss, an almost win, a loss, an almost win, a loss, almost win. And then at the last minute where she's like, where you're like almost about to pretend to walk out of the room. Okay. And then you've got her basically begging and turned on at the same time. Then you give it to her. Right? Then that win, that after you go cha-ching and it goes like cherry, you're like, yes. And like all these quarters come pouring out, right? It's the same sort of thing. And now she's like, yes, I won. I got the cherries. And now she's really getting what she wants. And that flood of like acceptance and passion and the arousal and all that shit, it just acts like a tidal wave coming right at her. Okay. Really, really strong stuff here. But you have to be really comfortable in giving commands. You have to. Okay. And if you wanted to extend it into the rest of your relationship, then you start in the bedroom, because that's just very easy, right? It's really easy to be in one position and say, get on your hands and knees, right? That's super easy. And once that is a regular thing, then you can move it out of the bedroom and start giving commands there. And, if you're clever, there's so many little things where you can add in operant conditioning. So I really stress that you do some research into operant conditioning. All right. And look around and look around in your life and notice how much of it is prevalent in your daily life. There's a lot everywhere. Okay. Like pretty much like anything you're doing where there's like a cause and effect, there's likely some conditioning happening there. Okay. So then if you're clever, you can start implementing these things in your relationship, whether it's like been just a couple of days or you've been seeing each other every so often for weeks or months or years. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Obviously, the more time spent with the conditioning, it goes deeper, but it doesn't mean that you can't utilize it. It also doesn't mean that you can't utilize commands, right? Um, the commands don't have to be part of conditioning, right? It's just important that if you wanted to do all this stuff, that you have to be comfortable giving commands. You cannot do it. So, a mentor of mine, he said to me that dominance and insecurity cannot exist at the same time. And I thought about that, and he is absolutely correct. You cannot have self-doubt or insecurity and be dominant at the same time. It just doesn't work. Okay? So to really get this, you also have to not only be comfortable with giving commands, but the one who is giving commands, like you really have to be comfortable with yourself and not have any doubt. Okay? Now, it's natural to have some doubt if you are trying something new. And the thing that you're trying might have some doubt, but you yourself, you should not have any doubt in you, in your ability to do it. Okay? Whether it's going to work out or not, it remains to be seen. But you should not have doubt in yourself. So, like, yes, of course I can do this. No, I've never done it before, but of course I can. Right? Because you're a man who believes in himself, who loves himself, and this is what he wants to bring into his relationship. And it's very simple, really, really simple. Okay. Like basically, like anything that you would ask for, you can turn into a command. Right. Now, I believe in commands with manners. That's just me. Okay. So I will add a please. So instead of saying, baby, will you make me a cup of coffee? I will say, baby, make me a cup of coffee, please. Right? It's a subtle shift, but it's very different. It's very different, right? Just removing the will you. All right. But you'd be surprised how uncomfortable many guys are with doing this. It's wild. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? Like the worst she could say is no, or like, why are you telling me to do it? And in which case, you could say, because it's something I'm trying out. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Right? And, if you're with a woman who you're doing like daily stuff with like that, you should already have someone who is willing on your team. Okay. So should already have a willing character. All right. Characteristic of her should be willingness. You shouldn't be involved with a woman who does not have an attitude of willingness. All right. Because it stops forward movement. It stops growth. It stops exploration. Okay. And you can't grow in anything without experimenting. Like, I mean, think about it. Like, you want to become a more skilled driver, you have to experiment. Okay. To see like what your car's capabilities are. You want to be a better musician. You have to experiment and try things you've never done before, and it's going to sound like shit, but you keep at it, and then you grow to that point, and then you can experiment more, right? It's the whole like fuck around and find out. You have to fuck around and find out in your relationships, whether it's been just a few days or you've been seeing someone for a while, right? And that's how you grow. So you have to face risk. Okay, just like the musician who's trying something new, they risk sounding terrible, and that's just what happens. Okay, the thing is though is that the only way to really make it equal is if you were to say they have no private practice time. Their practice time is always in front of someone else, right? Because you can't have like practice time without a woman present, right? So it's kind of in that situation. However, you can do dry runs in your head, all right, which is a very healthy thing. All right, I think it's really important to do dry runs for things that you're uncertain of or that you've never tried before, or uncertain of due to never trying before. Man, now it's police cars. Man, something. I hope something terrible didn't happen, and I do hope that it was some kind of practice or whatever what Guns was saying. But yeah, so gotta have that belief in yourself, fellas. Like it's the end all and be all to everything. Everything in your life has to do with believing in and trusting yourself. You can't really get away with faking man shit, right? And I've done this like in my youth, right? And you always get caught. Like eventually the mask falls off, okay? And it's fine not being where you want to be, all right? Because frankly, you're never going to be. Never. Okay? There's like the only way is if you never challenge yourself. If you're never interested in growing, then you will definitely arrive somewhere. But if you have the mindset of growth, you're never going to be in a place of feeling that you've arrived. Never. So just get that out of your head now. Okay? You're never going to arrive. And this is why I urge my clients to not be very goal-oriented. You should be aware of your goals for sure, right? Because that gives you like an idea of like, well, why am I doing this? Okay. You should be aware of your goals, but your attention should be more focused on process. Okay. Because process-oriented things bring about results when you focus on the process. Okay. So just in the same way we were talking about, programming her erotic mind, if you focus on the process instead of constantly looking at your side eye and be like, oh, is she able to have an orgasm yet due to me saying this anchor word? Like, has it happened yet? And you're like constantly focusing on the end result, then you're less likely to actually have that end result occur, or it's going to take longer for it to happen. Versus if you put the majority of your awareness on the processes involved to make sure that what you're doing to create the result is more on point, then you're more likely to bring about that result. Okay. Now it makes sense when I say it, but putting it into practice is a different thing. Okay. Because, especially guys who don't have a lot of experience with this sort of, I don't know what to call it, like influential leadership or something along those lines. We can call it influential leadership. If they don't have any experience with this, they hear what I'm talking about and be like, oh man, like I want to do that. Right. Like I want to be in the movies with my girl and just say, screwdriver. And she has an orgasm, like a mini orgasm right there in the theater. Like, yeah, I want to do that. Right. And it's like, yeah, it's interesting stuff. So it should get you excited, right? To be like, wow, that's such a cool possibility. But if you're only focused on the end results of things, then you're going to not pay attention to the important pieces of what puts the end result together. All right. And when you're in this position, this is what brings about the conductor mindset that I talk about often, where you're not fully sunken into the moment, right? Because you have to be detached in order to just slightly to watch what's happening, to observe what's happening, and to be aware of like how things are going either well or not well. Okay. And so that's why it's really important to have that conductor mindset, because it merges perfectly with sorry, with the whole process mindset. Okay. And this also allows you to get in the mindset of experimentation, creativity, expression, and just allows freedom to kind of like let your ideas roll, right? Because now you're kind of looking at things like, okay, this is my creative process. All right. Now again, don't try this sort of thing if you're with a woman who has an attitude that is not very willing. Excuse me. Yeah, don't do any of this stuff if you're with a woman who doesn't have an enthusiastic, open-minded, and willing attitude. And there's plenty of women who are out there that are like that, and you could be fucking one of them right now. Just have sex, just have a good time with them. Don't worry about trying to be an influential leader. Okay. And you'll be able to pick up on small things, small parts of her behavior where uh, you can tell she's enthusiastic about following your lead. All right. And you can just like anything, just small phrases. Go here, do this, sit there, take your coat off, put your coat on, do this, do that. Just very, very simple little things, right? Low stress. And this will be an indication that she's got, at least to that degree, an open mind. And then you can start pushing the envelope even more and more and more. Okay. Now, if she really likes you, then it's going to be easier. Okay. So her level of desire and appreciation of you allows for your ability to lead her better, right? Because usually when we like somebody, we tend to trust them more. All right. Women, especially, like when they really like you, they're more apt to trust you. All right. And when someone is trusting, they're also more vulnerable. Okay. So that means that your ability to influence that must be on point, right? You can't have that self-doubt. Okay. Because they're entrusting you. Okay. And when women can feel your doubt in yourself, they kind of shrink back. Okay. Their sphincter gets tighter. And it's important that they can relax. All right. So, as pandering as it may sound, it's really important that she trusts you. Okay. Now, you shouldn't be going after her trust. Okay. You should be just going after your own consistency and being process oriented. And if she doesn't have a lot of trust issues, her trust will come along. Okay. But when it does, it's now your responsibility. It's your responsibility because now she's opening to you. All right. And so you combine that with fucking her really well. That sort of stuff will make your commands and your experimentation with triggers and things of that nature all the more easy. Okay. What easier. And yeah, and it's just a lot more fun. Because when they're more relaxed and more open-minded, then you can express yourself more easily. Okay. It's like making the music reference. If you're playing music with with an audience, and even if you're not perfect, they're really open to it. They're open to hearing your performance. They're like, yeah, cool. Like they're encouraging. So it's like when they're more open, this allows you to just perform more or to do more on stage, whatever you're doing on stage, right? When I was younger, I used to do like a lot of open mics and stuff. I was friends with a number of poets. I wasn't really a poet, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this shit out. And yeah, like the majority of the audience was women. Like I would say, I don't know, 73%, 70 to 75% of the audience was women. And they just love that shit. Like they love just like watching men do stuff. And, it doesn't have to be manly all the time. Okay. Because like reading poetry isn't exactly manly, but it sure got the girls, right? Especially when it was like happening in a bar and, drinks are flowing and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, that was so nice. Can I buy you a drink? And that sort of thing. And I still don't like it when women want to buy me a drink. It's so awkward for me. Because I would like to say no. But I know that that's them going out on a limb, and I don't want them to feel slighted. And so in those situations, I just cut a deal and say, all right, well, if the conversation is good, next round's on me. But typically, I don't like women doing shit for me. I don't like it at all. Gifts are fine. My woman buys me gifts all the time, but treating me to stuff, it's a little weird. It's a little weird. But I'm not going to stop her. And I think she knows this. And I think just we're on the same page about that. Like, it's a little weird for her too. But once in a while, she's like, come on, I want to buy you lunch. And like, that's fine. But like, never has it been a nice dinner out. Like she's never been like, oh, I want to take care of this bill. It's just weird. Lunches, yes. She's done breakfasts as well. Like if we're out traveling or something like that, she'll get a breakfast. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't like women doing shit. Taking me out, taking care of me. Like woman can take care of you in other ways. Okay. Getting you supplies for whatever, supporting your hobbies, supporting your interests, getting you gifts that, would benefit her, like say like cologne or a shirt or something like that she thinks would look good on you. Like that sort of stuff. Like that's all great stuff. It's all really, really good. But expecting a woman to like take you out, like that's just, I don't know. It's just weird, Like, could you imagine like James Bond being treated to dinner by a woman? Like, no, it doesn't. It's just awkward. But hey, if you're cool with that, you want women to take you out, you want women to take care of you, by all means, aim for the stars. That's not me. Maybe I'm just old. These younger generations, they want to be treated like women. I am so glad. What was that bullshit that was floating around for a hot minute? Sprinkle. Or drizzle, or whatever the fuck it is. Drizzle. That's what it was, wasn't it? Drizzle. I'm so glad that came and went quickly. Okay. But it's funny because like guys of my generation, and I just had my birthday. I just turned 47, and like we would never think about that stuff ever. Why would we be thinking about receiving the same sort of treatment that women get? Right? It's just bizarre. Yeah, the soft guy era. Yes, thank you, Guns. Why would you want to be associating yourself with the word soft? Why? Like, I don't want soft hands. I don't want soft feet. I don't want soft mind. I don't want soft voice. I don't want soft body. I don't want soft anything. All right? Anything having to do with me, I don't want soft. Unless it's something like creative that I purposely made to be soft. And that's been usually for a woman's experience. Right? Like some sort of like soft playtime stuff with like hot oils and, meditation music and all that shit. Like that's soft. But for myself, I don't want anything soft. I don't want to refer to myself as I'm a soft guy. Like I want to be taken care of. Like the other day, I was listening to Clubhouse, right? I love that Petri dish. And this one guy was boasting to another group of men that he was a house husband. And he was so happy to be a house husband. He's like, yeah, I don't work. And my woman makes a lot of money and takes care of me. And he's like, my only job is to like look good, make sure the house doesn't fall apart, and take care of myself. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's a generation thing, but like, I have to do shit. I have to. It's just, I feel like something's wrong with my day if I'm not productive all day. And maybe I'll take little breaks here and there, but the vast majority of the day, it's production, produce. And if I'm not producing, it's like setting up to produce. I can't relate. I just don't know what it is to want to be just fully taken care of. And a woman will take care of you, but in a different kind of way. It's more so due to your heavy production. Okay? Like my woman regularly massages my hands. She regularly massages my feet. She's not the best back massager, I think, just because of the size of my back and like little hands. She's just not very strong with her hands to do a good back massage, and that's fine. That's just physiology. But yeah, she gives regular hand and foot massages, neck massages, makes me tea. There's just ways that woman can care for you that, it's not being taken care of. Like your livelihood. It's just weird, man. So don't spend time around these type of dudes. Okay. Like spend time with productive men, right? Who are filled with ideas, right? Like high-minded people, they work on level of talking about ideas. I can't remember who said this. It's like high-minded people talk about ideas. Mid-level people talk about events. And low-ended people talk about other people. Like like higher shit where like people are really doing shit and producing and creating in the world. They're not talking about other people. They're not gossiping about what this person did and what that person did and this, that, and the other. It's like they're off on some other shit that's a lot bigger than them. Okay? Their plans are bigger than them. And they work with other people who have plans that are bigger than them. Associate yourself with people who think like this. Surround yourself with those sort of people. People who spend time talking about other people, it's a waste of time. They're actually sucking things from you, okay? Like idle chatter and gossip. This is a great way to suck energy out of you, right? And to be used for nothing, used for absolute nothing. All right. So if you're a man and you find yourself gossiping, okay, about what other people do in their lives, the he said, she said bullshit, you're wasting your life. And you might find some enjoyment in this, but it doesn't really bring back anything. There's no, like when you're investing in that type of communication with other people, there's nothing that comes back. You don't get any kind of return on your investment of your time and energy. All right. Now, the mid-level, where they're talking about events, there's a slight return. Okay. Because you're learning about things that are, say, occurring in the world, news, events that are happening in your community, things of that nature. Okay. So there's a slight return on that because you gain knowledge. But when you're in the upper levels and you're talking about ideas, you're opening your mind, right? And you're getting it to expand and you're coming up with ways to produce something out of nothing. This is the mindset. Is the mindset of I'm going to produce something out of nothing. And it's like, it's all the same shit. It's like because I was just thinking about, well, that's kind of the same way that you can bring in certain things into your relationship by just speaking them into existence. You just speak them into existence by bringing commands in, by bringing in operant conditioning. All right. So you're creating something out of nothing. And like, this is the kind of, it's just the kind of mindset that you need to have. The conductor, the creator, the experimenter, like get out of your feelings, get out of being so entrenched in the present, and get more out. Like, open your mind of like, what do I fucking want? What do I want to create? Right? Hey, Dylan, good to see you, buddy. Good evening. I'm going on a first date with a lass. A first date with a lass tonight who has a praise kink. Oh, good for her. Love that. Told me she gets wet when she hears good girl. What are some ways I can take this info and play with it? Okay, well, there's the easiest one and very fun is playing games of tease and denial. Okay, so tease and denial games have to do with almost giving them what they want. And yes, thank you, Uncle Guns. That was a great question. Okay, so it's giving them a little bit of what they want, or the anticipation that they're going to get what they want, and then denying it. Okay, and it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier about the fucking in bed, right? And saying like, tell me you want to get fucked. I want to get fucked. No, ask. Please, can I get fucked? No, that's not good enough. And bringing it down into a begging on her knees with her tongue out, talking like a moron, begging to get fucked. And you're like, okay, now that's good enough. So in the same sort of sense is that you can kind of like make her work for the good girls, right? The good girl phrases, like make her work for it. And just play around with the tease and denial. Like that's always like a really easy one to play with. But yeah, Dylan, that sounds like a lot of fun, and even if you don't want to experiment with it, and just knowing that you can do that is a lot of fun. Like, praise kinks are great. And like any kind of kink is a lot of fun. If they have like a humiliation kink, that's always something great to play with. The thing is, though, and I don't know if you were here for the earlier part of the show, is I was talking about, I know this is just a first date, but this is kind of like bringing it into like a wider scope here, is comfort. Okay. So if you were to say good girl all the time, then they get used to it. It becomes just like background noise, right? And you want to disrupt this. You want to disrupt the praise so that their mind goes, wait, what? And they, like a dog, they're like turning their head to the side, wondering what the hell just happened. I usually hear this when I do this thing, and now I don't hear this. What's going on? And then you skip a beat, and then you come back on, and then it gives them that rush again, like they've just won at the slot machine. Okay, after losing a bunch of times. So really, like, you could just play around, play with the tease and denial. I would say that is the best thing, the most fun way you can do it. But oh man, that's gonna be so much fun, Dylan. I'm happy for you. So much fun. Like when a girl knows about these things and she's like, I have this, and you can build the anticipation, right? So you're sitting there, like, I don't know if you like, say, like going out having a drink or whatever, and she's telling you these things, and you say, well, tell me about it. Tell me more about this kink, right? And getting her talking about it. So she's talking about it, but not being in it. Okay, which can build anticipation. And so two like really good listening techniques or speech techniques that I learned from Chris Voss, who is like he's a terrorist. Well, he's former terrorist negotiator, and to get people to open up, you do this thing called mirroring and labeling. Okay. So mirroring is you just repeat what they just said. So she's like, oh, yeah, I've got a pretty serious praise kink. And you go, oh, you've got a really serious praise kink? And she's like, yeah. And then she'll like open up and start telling about it a little bit here, a little bit there. And then you repeat the last thing that she said, but in a question form. And then after a while, you occasionally slip in labels. And the labels, they always start with, it sounds like, right? And then you label just like a summary. So you're like, hey, it sounds like that you discovered this at an early age. And, from that point on, it really seemed to turn you on a lot. And she's like, yeah, it does. It does. And then you can go in and just get her talking more about it, which is going to increase her anticipation and things of that nature. All right. But then you can use this as a means of like right away with some like commands and conditioning. So it's like if you're going to do something, you say you're going out. I use this example a lot where say you have your first drink or something like that, and you get up and say, well, I'm going to go use the restroom. While I'm away, order me, another one of my drinks, right? And then you come back, and if she's gotten the drink for you, right? You can just tell her like, come here, right? Put a little like slap on your thigh, motioning her to sit on your lap, right? And then you bring her head down to you, remember, into her left ear. Okay. Bring her head down, like kind of like grabbing her here, but not too forcefully, just enough to guide her. And then you whisper into her ear, good girl. Right. And that will send her over. Right. And, so you can like bring this into so many things, like, especially if you hadn't said it. So she's like, okay, I told him this thing. He's not doing anything with it. We've been talking about it, like increasing her anticipation. And then that one thing where you do it and she's like, oh, right. And then you can make her expand on it more. Right. And go into her ear again and say, tell me how that made you feel. Right. Describe what's happening to you. And so she's now like reliving the experience as it's happening in describing these things to her, which was going to like actualize what's happening even more. Okay. There's like so many fun things you could do. But like, again, like kind of going back to some of the things that we touched on before, it's like, if you go into this, not just you, Dylan, but any guy, like you go into this with this idea, like, man, I'm afraid, like, gosh, I don't know if she's gonna like that or not. Or, like, man, what if I fuck it up? What if she doesn't like me? What if she like gets upset? I don't know if I can do this stuff. Like, it's going to fall flat. You have to have 100% trust, relaxation, and belief in yourself. And because if it's got just a pinch in there of this contaminant of doubt, it's going to fuck up the whole thing, right? It'll alter your voice just enough where she can hear it, that you're not full of shit, but you've got a little bit of shit in you, right? You don't have any shit in you. Like, you've done this 1,000 times. That's how comfortable it has to feel. And that doesn't come from doing it 1,000 times, although experience does help with confidence. It's more important that you just rid yourself of the feeling of doubt, regardless if you've done it 100 times or 4 times, right? No matter what it is, okay? Just having that belief in yourself. And I know it sounds crazy because we're like, hey, we're just talking about giving a woman a command, right? Telling her she's been a good girl. Oh man, I'm getting like charged up for you, Dylan. Like I want to be like right there, like watching. That'd be so much fun. Yeah. But yeah, you're gonna have fun. But yeah, for any of this stuff, like you gotta trust in who you are. I know it sounds like big and fucking philosophical or very bumper sticker-ish. But you really do. It makes all the difference in the world. right? And not even like a chip on your shoulder, because some people will counteract these feelings by having what they think is like some sort of opposite feeling. They're like, okay, well, if I have like well, fuck anything what anybody thinks of me, then that will solve the problem. And it's like, well, no, because now you're not putting relaxation in there, right? Remember, the optimal place to be mentally and emotionally is still. And like I've got clients who are um they're having a difficulty with this idea, right? Because they're like, oh well, I thought if I was just like really grounded in myself and I know what I stood for and my identity is strong and I'm feeling masculine and just good, that I would be happy. And it's like, no, 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 it's not about being happy. That's an emotion that comes and goes. Okay. You don't want to come and go. You just want to be. And being has a lot to do with stillness. That's the most optimal place to be mentally and emotionally as a man. Okay. Because when you are, automatically that comes with comfort. Like you're just comfortable. And when a woman can feel this on you, that you're just not nervous, you don't have anxiety, you're just there, right? This just relieves her of varying degrees of tension depending on the woman. Okay, like if she's really nervous, then she like, and like she can exhale a little bit and relieve some tension because you are just so relaxed. Like you've been to this place in this scenario 1,000 times. And it doesn't matter. It's no big deal, right? And then it's like, like Dylan, you can do this too, where you're not pressed for sex. Okay. No, man, this would send her over, where you're not pressed for sex. And men, you shouldn't be pressed for sex. Okay. Because your dick should not be free. Ever. All right. Ever should your dick be free. Or never should your dick be free. But at the same time, you're still instigating her arousal, right? But from a calm place, not a hungry place, but a playful place. Okay, you keep instigating her arousal, instigating, and she's going bump, 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 right? But you're not after her for the sex. Okay, and because I'll tell you, one of the greatest things in the world is not a man who wants to fuck, but a woman who wants to fuck. Like that is one of the most beautiful, most powerful, creative things in life that you will come across. Is a woman who has a hunger for sex and she's letting it be seen or heard or felt in some way. This is amazing to see this in reality. Much better than a guy who wants to fuck. All right. No, you men should be controlled. You should be able to control your impulses while also allowing her to feel that you are this way. You're just not running with it. And so you're like teasing and bringing that up and bringing it up. And it's like, oh my gosh, I want this man to take me home. I want this man to fuck, right? And then you can play with her a little bit and go, all right, you know what? I'm going to go to bed. What? You want to fuck? Oh, no, I do. I'm just going to go to bed. It's just so twisted, right? Especially if you gave her all the physical intentions that there's no confusion that you're sexually attracted to her. Okay. It's just this denial thing that would just drive him batty. But it's like a feathering, right? Because if you deny too much, like playing with a cat, like if you deny the cat too much of the toy, they lose interest. Okay. But if you let them get it right away, they also lose interest. So it's like you have to kind of play this balancing act between this tease denial and giving them what they want. So you definitely have to like open your sensitivity to the intangibles of arousal and desire and being and denial, right? Because part of denial comes, just like a negative emotion. Like when you want something and you don't get it, you're like, oh, shucks, I didn't get the thing, right? So, but if that aw shucks is too heavy, then you're going to be like, fuck it, right? And you don't want them to say fuck it. You want to keep them teetering on that edge, right? And shit, like maybe you can get her turned on and then give her a command, right? So tell me, see the same thing with the sex. Dylan, I hope you're still here watching. Tell her, give her an instruction to say, like, call me a good girl, right? And that's going to make her feel really uncomfortable, all right? And then you say, no, you know what? Better yet, make it a question, make it a request. And she's like, oh, Dylan, will you please call me a good girl, right? And you're like, not good enough. I didn't hear the sincerity in your voice. Try again. All right. So then you're like just pushing and pushing and pushing. And then you can make it into like a beg, right? Begging her for praise or making her beg for praise. Oh man, like all the while, like physically, you could like just be like kind of like stroking the like her lower back, right? Or depending on your situation, I don't know, like discreetly like rubbing her nipple through her shirt, whatever it is, right? Or like playing with the skin like on the inside of her wrist, where you take the pulse. Like that's a very, very sensitive area. Any sort of like physical thing that's attached to the gameplay that you're doing, man, like the tension. The tension you could create and like just be able to cut it. And then like just before the things, you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to get a refill in my drink. What do you want? And she's like snapped out of it. She's like, what? Why don't you go get a refill? And she'll be like thrown, right? And then when she comes to get the refill, then you pull her in and tell her, good girl, right? And then all of that tension just gets released, right? So there's a lot. There's a lot you can do. There's so much you can do. So it's fun. It just keep a mindset of fun, and you'll be all right. Yes, you move and escalate like you know it will happen. She'll read it, sense it, giving the vibe of I'm going to let you experience me. Yes, and then deny that experience, or edge it out, right? Because it's like if everything goes like dominoes, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's like, all right, well, that's fine and all, and sometimes things work out that way, and it's totally fine. But I think a lot of guys miss the opportunity when the woman is, just being the way she should be, right, according to your standards, and then you could just lead it right to that, and you just go 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys are fucking, right? That's great, right? And many times that's just the way it should be. But sometimes you throw it in there where it's like, I might let you experience me. I'm not sure yet. Do I have the time? Right? And while all the while still escalating. Like, it's going to happen. She knows it's going to happen. The tension is there. And then you're like, I've changed my mind. And she's like, what the fuck? Yeah, you can do the same sort of thing in the bedroom, right? Arousal is very, very high. She wants to fuck. And you're like, you know what? I'm just not into it. Now, you're not really going to leave, but you like stop everything. You're like, I'm not into it. She'll be crestfallen. Right? Especially if she like really, really wants to get fucked. Okay. She'll be crestfallen. And then you can do the whole begging thing again. Especially if she has like a degradation kink, fuck. Like it's done. It is done getting her to grovel. Right. And this will turn her on immensely. She'll be a fucking mess of a puddle before you even do anything. Right? And then you're like, fine. Right? But just because you're being so desperate right now. Next time, get yourself together. take off your clothes. Right? I'm telling you, man. Like she will not forget something like that. She will not forget it. So, all right, Dylan. Yeah, message me, man. Message me when afterwards. I want to hear how this evening goes. And and that other thing that you messaged me about, I won't mention, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Let me know what's going on with that. So, all right, I'm going to pull this to a close. This was an interesting show. Got a little technical, which sometimes usually we don't get into. We tend to bounce around into the philosophical, but we got into some technical things. I hope that was helpful for you. All right, and again, whenever you're dealing with things like operant conditioning on a very serious level, okay, and we're talking serious like conditioning. First, yes, you're going to want consent, okay? Because if you don't know what the fuck you're doing and you try to go in deep, you're going to mess up somebody's head, okay? Or they're going to notice that you're doing it and laugh at you, right? It's best if these things are consensual, all right? I think I also have to say this sort of thing for YouTube. But, in reality, especially if it's like your woman, right? You should discuss these things so she knows what's happening to her, right? Because we want clarity, right? We want transparency. We want to move honestly as men, okay? Now, the lighter things around operant conditioning, that I don't know. I don't think you need consent for that sort of thing because it's not really invasive. Okay. But once you start being more invasive with her psychology, I think it's best practice to have consent on her part so she knows what you're getting into. And it's even better if she's willing, and now she's willing for this very specific act. Okay. So just keep that in mind. All right. Well, thank you guys for catching me on the live. I appreciate you guys who are catching me on the replay. It's been a good one. And hit me up on IG. If you have any questions, I do free consultations, 30 minutes. We can talk about whatever you want. The links should be in the bio. All right. But if not, just message me on IG. I'll hit you with a link and you can find a time that works best for you. Lately, this summer has been insane. Been very, very busy. So, like, if you want consultations, you want coaching calls, like, get in. Don't put it off. Get in as soon as the impulse hits you, because my time is shrinking, like, very, very quickly. So, I think by the time winter probably comes around, I'm going to have a waiting list. That's the rate at things, the way they're going now. So, check out the website, and we'll go from there. All right. If you have any questions, hit me up. Thank you for watching. And this is Dominance Academy, and we are out. We are out of here.